He's a stone-cold liar. I respect the presidency. I've tried to have an open hand with him, tried to work with him. You can't work with Donald Trump. You can only work for him. And I will not. I refuse to.
I barely survived this chaos, and it had nothing to do with a workout or spicy food. I had a front row seat as politics flipped upside down. Gavin Newsom walked in ready with polished speeches and perfect smiles. Then Greg Gutfeld hit like a comedy wrecking ball with no warning. What followed wasn't a debate. It was a slow collapse of confidence, control, and public dignity. Every second was impossible to look away from.
We were the first to call out Gavin's bizarre hand movements. Remember this classic?
Conditions that determine our fate and future. And that fundamental notion of agency, I think, is important more broadly. And I think that goes to some of the issues around, victimization. And I see a lot of that, respectively, on the right, increasingly, even with Trump often approaching things from that sort of mindset.
Before we go further, hit like and subscribe. This is one moment you don't want to miss. The room barely settled before tension spiked. A polished political smile met a late-night grin sharp enough to cut the air. Everyone felt the unspoken warning. This was a
be lying, and I can't do that. Well, since you can't lie, what tequila were you nursing while the Pacific Palisades burned? And what was it like banging your campaign manager's wife? Of course, he's just waiting for us to forget that his state looks like an overturned porta potty. But with fake crime statistics and fake boobs, why not have a fake governor? In an interview last week, Newsom painted himself as a latchkey kid struggling to make ends meet.
With his usual governor-level confidence, acting like the lights, cameras, and applause were already his. Greg Gutfeld followed, wearing a mischievous smile that said he'd just been given permission to cause trouble.
Cities, the crime, the urban decay? No, he's not mad about that stuff. He's mad you noticed. It's like a criminal telling a jury he's sorry he robbed 25 banks when he's just sorry he got caught on the 26th. Because this isn't some spontaneous crisis. It's a man-made disaster like Chernobyl or Fox and Friends. The man who made it acts like he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It's pure government grift, shoving you down a flight of stairs and then making you.
At first, everything moved at the calm pace of polite conversation. Newsom's posture displayed practiced authority, the kind shaped by years of scripted press conferences where real pushback barely registered.
But he really is an elite overdog that hasn't done anything of any difference or value for California, so he has to pick fights. I mean, think about the response to the Palisades fire. Like, nothing has happened. That's on his watch. There's the exodus of people leaving California. There are the taxes, like you say, there's corruption. And I think he's trying to say, look, I can have fun.
Energy felt calm and controlled, almost too perfect, like the opening of a disaster movie where no one notices the warning signs. Then the shift came. Gutfeld didn't rush it, letting the moment settle naturally, like a familiar routine taking hold.
I came into that recall campaign still arguing that all politics is local. I still had a romantic notion of that. I intellectualized that a lot of our politics and the discourse was national. I didn't fully appreciate how nationalized our politics have become. In so many ways, that shape shifted a lot of what we're doing and who I am today. But this last year, these last 6-7 months, this is something altogether different.
Ugh, it's like he's.
The calm comfort lowered guards, making everything feel safe before it wasn't. Gutfeld smiled casually and tested the waters with a subtle first jab. Newsom deflected it smoothly, keeping his control. Gutfeld didn't stop. He used Newsom's own talking points, scoring with sharper hits. Each observation peeled back layers of contradictions and recycled promises. The audience stayed quiet, sensing the moment
Millions of dollars to be swallowed up by a maze of consultants, nonprofits, and bureaucrats who created poop mats. It's sad. Californians used to sell maps of celebrity homes, not landmines. Now, instead of sightseeing, tourists play hopscotch so their shoes don't get hepatitis. And when residents complain, they're called cruel. And now
kept nodding, pretending control as stress cracks showed beneath the polish. His usual rhythm faltered, and survival thoughts replaced performance. Gutfeld didn't swing wildly. He struck with precision. Newsom looked outmatched, like holding a foam sword against steel. Laughter rolled through the audience, growing with each hit. Attempts to lean on record and talking points only exposed new weaknesses. Gutfeld let him build confidence, then calmly pulled a key block, watching it walk.
Story, except that it's about as flimsy as the drawstring on J.B. Pritzker's moo-moo. Because while Gavin was hustling, he was featured in a Children of the Rich article detailing his ties to billionaire oil man Gordon Getty. His dad worked for the Gettys, and the same Getty fortune bankrolled Gav's first business venture, a winery. This guy owned a wine shop at 24 years old, back when yours truly was still doing nude modeling.
Energy shifted from competitive to explosive. Newsom's tone sharpened, words rushing, face showing sudden realization he'd stepped into a debate he thought he'd already won. Momentum spilled out faster than he could control. Gutfeld watched, calm, letting it burn out. When Newsom paused mid-retort, Greg rejoined with the same relaxed posture and grin, clearly entertained. Every serious line from Newsom landed like an unintentional punchline. Another attempt to redirect, another polished defense, another quiet checkmate from Gutfeld. The audience responded, louder, faster, almost predicting what...
Apparently, our commentary on his hands have gotten inside his head, and Gavin now is desperately trying to control himself, and or not.
Well, it's a curious question. I made the entire point that crime's an issue and we want to tackle it, and we continue to do more in that space, and we announced...
Poor guy. I want you to watch again as his errant thumb valiantly, violently resists.
Every pause felt like a drum roll as Newsom struggled to hold the floor. Long answers risked setting up another hit, and even sincere explanations carried the faint echo of a punchline. His eruption tightened jaw, eyes, and posture, turning polished confidence into rigid fragility. Gutfeld shifted effortlessly, framing the moment as commentary on the bigger picture, showing how Newsom's grand promises were removed from reality. That observation landed precisely, not loudly, but with undeniable weight. The audience recognized it immediately. From then on, every answer Newsom gave carried the pressure of being seen through a sharper lens.
Why do I keep bringing up Gavin? Well, other than my respect for his work in American Psycho, he's starting to distance himself from his party's worst ideas. Newsom, a guy who hates fossil fuels but could still bring down the price of gas by wringing out his hair, once proclaimed that his state would be a sanctuary to all who seek it. Then people actually came, tons of them, moving faster than a mob of Walgreens.
Every attempt Newsom made to reclaim authority felt off balance, as if his confidence had slipped and couldn't find solid ground. The earlier eruption left a restless energy, clinging to every gesture. His body language told the story, leaning forward too often, hands moving with tense attention, eyes sharp but constrained. He wasn't enjoying a debate. He was trying to steady a narrative slipping sideways. Meanwhile, Gutfeld leaned back with calm precision. Jokes landed perfectly, comments flowed effortlessly, and even Newsom's strongest points seemed strained, while Gutfeld's replies rolled downhill with ease. The earlier flare-up had already shaped perception. Now, Newsom spoke cautiously, but it was too late. The audience's skepticism had been sharpened by what had come before.
Decade were based on his and his party's lies. A man can grow his hair out and play girls' sports. A gangbanger can claim he's oppressed. That homeless junkie, he's just an out-of-work artist. See, Newsom wasn't just ignoring the problem, he enabled it because Dems were in a woke crouch, terrified of their loony base. But now that he's seeing the White House, he's got a brand new act, a common-sense centrist, just a soccer dad in khakis, fed up with crime and chaos. It's all bull. A costume, a political drag show, and the kids this drag queen is
not to repeat himself, but to refine everything already said, like moving chess pieces into a final position that suddenly makes the whole board clear. He didn't need a dramatic closing line. The exchange had already spoken for itself. Newsom responded with dignity, keeping composure and pushing forward, but his rhythm was permanently altered. The earlier eruption wasn't the finale. It was the turning point. Every sentence afterward carried its aftershock. The pressure wasn't just internal. He knew the audience saw it all in real time, and that awareness unsettled him. Gutfeld widened the frame, giving Newsom space, then nudged it subtly, reshaping without force. Dominance came through tone, quiet and precise. By the final stretch, the eruption had cooled into something calmer, but more revealing: persistence and resignation. Newsom no longer tried to control the narrative, only to manage the tremors
The
left
conservative
behind.
Supreme Court will overturn the current law that bans his state from removing out-of-control homeless encampments. Imagine that. Well, what did you expect, Gavin? That the sanctuary seekers were going to show up in Winnebagos? Once again, another example of a high-profile lib using his big mouth to write a check his ass can't cash. Last year, after the Texas Governor Abbott ordered that parents of transitioning children should face criminal investigation, Newsom then tweeted this: "Trans kids and their..."
The audience sensed the shift immediately, their reactions settling into a steadier rhythm as the spectacle quieted into reflection. The dramatic blow-up everyone anticipated had already happened, not in one explosion, but through a series of precise moments that gradually unbalanced Gavin's footing. Gutfeld remained relaxed, his final moves almost gentle. There was no need for a knockout. The scorecards were already in his favor. His closing remarks didn't spike, they settled, and that calmness spoke louder than any theatrics. Newsom handled the ending with composure, adjusting posture and tone, but the imprint of the clash lingered. Slight pauses, subtle delays, echoes of what had unfolded, they all carried weight. It was like the aftermath of a storm everyone pretended was light rain. No debris, no dramatic wreckage, just a quiet recognition that the room had been reshaped. What made the moment endure wasn't volume or chaos. It was the inversion. Timing and tone revealed who controlled the room.
No, poor kids don't have pet otters like Gavin did. Gavin actually had a pet otter, which also means he had pet fish to feed said otter. But he's lucky he started from privilege. He never had a real job. And once he gained power, he counts on Wikipedia editors to make him working class. And then you count on nobody bothering to look it all up, which is a bad strategy in this day of Grok and ChatGPT. And a public week when a California law was proposed that judges in custody cases favor the parent who supports transitioning a child's new gender, Newsom killed that law quicker than a late-term abortion. Yeah, I know, huh? Now, the left, being the left, was outraged, but they missed something, because now Newsom says he only vetoed it since it's already the law. That's a nice one, dude. You got to admit, this guy's so oily, he should join OPEC. But what a magician. Only he pulls excuses out of his butt.